But I'm talking to you about respect and fear. There's no question. We ain't talking about respect for LeBron.
And I'm
James.
disagreeing with you completely.
And so you're saying,
There's no credence, JJ.
so you're saying that the people like that, the fear that Michael Jordan instilled in people, that's what LeBron did?
Yes. LeBron has grown up in a completely different world that existed in the 80s and 90s.
In a world obsessed with stats, screens, and storylines, there comes a time when truth needs to punch through the noise. And that time is now. Because once again, the NBA world is at war over a debate that never truly rests: Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. But this time, the spark came not from just Stephen A. Smith, but also JJ Redick. And their fiery back and forth unlocked something deeper. This is not just about who scored more, who played longer, or who passed better. This is about legacy built under pressure, under silence, under fear. Jordan didn't need social media applause. He didn't need narrative manipulation. He didn't get shielded by fanboys with microphones. He earned everything, every ounce of it, through grit, dominance, and the sheer terror he struck in his opponents' hearts. This script tears into every quote with no filter and no apology. We are not here to be diplomatic. We are here to call it what it is. Michael Jordan got it the hard way. LeBron got it with a cushion. Make no mistake, both are legends. But only one is untouchable. So before we dive into each jaw-dropping quote, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and share this with anyone still confused about greatness. Because by the end of this script, there will be no confusion. Just truth. Now let's get started. The term fear factor in the NBA is not just a poetic metaphor, it is a cold reality. Stephen A. Smith isn't just throwing around words to sound provocative. He is speaking a truth that separates Michael Jordan from every other player who has ever touched a basketball. There was a fear factor with Jordan that LeBron James never commanded. This isn't about respect or admiration. This is about terror, about the look on players' faces before tip-off, about coaches second-guessing their game plans knowing that the man in red and black was going to rip through their schemes like tissue paper. Jordan made legends crumble. He didn't ask for mercy. He didn't wait for the narrative to shape itself. He showed up and forced the world to bow. When Stephen A. talks about fear, he is pinpointing something you can't measure in stats. It's the psychological dominance, the aura, the edge-of-your-seat tension that came with every Jordan possession. LeBron has had dominant performances. He has had historic runs. But he has never instilled that fear. Opponents respect his game. They do not flinch at his presence. They do not go to sleep haunted by the idea of facing him the next day. Fear is what separated MJ from the rest. And it's exactly what has always held LeBron back from owning the GOAT crown. Fear is not granted by the media. It is earned. And Jordan earned it the hard way.
And a lot of times when you delineate the difference between the two, whether it's Michael Jordan or it's LeBron James, they're talking about a fear factor.
Stephen A. does not mince his words when he calls out the way people come at LeBron James. Not just on the court, but behind his back, through the media, on podcasts, in whispers and think pieces. That didn't happen to Michael Jordan. And there's a reason. It's not because the media wasn't active back then. It's because nobody dared to cross that line. Jordan demanded not just respect. He demanded silence. He controlled the room without even speaking. He earned that control with blood, sweat, and countless hours of surgical execution on the hardwood. LeBron, despite his greatness, never built that kind of force field. He was thrown into a 24/7 media circus that protected him just as much as it criticized him. The media has been both his shield and his sword. With Jordan, there was no shield. He walked into arenas knowing every single person wanted to dethrone him, and he still conquered. People clown LeBron for flopping, for dancing, for playing GM, for switching teams. None of that would fly under Jordan. MJ didn't just avoid scrutiny. He shut it down before it could start. This is what Stephen A. is highlighting. The media knew not to cross Jordan. The players knew not to speak out of turn. That's not just talent. That's not just championships. That's legendary control, something LeBron has never possessed. MJ didn't rely on narratives to protect his image. he protected it with dominance, with aura, with fear.
Things you knew that you wasn't going to do to MJ. You could come to MJ on the court, but the things that people have done, the way that they've talked about LeBron James, the way that they've come behind him in the media.
In this brutal contrast, Stephen A. Smith uncovers the most powerful part of Jordan's mystique, his era of silence. We hear wild stories now, decades later, about MJ's habits, his attitude, his competitiveness that bordered on obsession. But during his prime, you heard nothing. Not a peep, not a leak, not a whisper that dared diminish the legend while he was in motion. That wasn't because of weak media. That was because of a level of fear and respect so profound that even journalists treaded carefully. Now contrast that with LeBron, who has had every move, every quote, every cryptic Instagram post dissected in real time. That constant spotlight has humanized him. And while that may endear him to fans, it destroys the mystique. Jordan was mythic because he left no space for scrutiny. His dominance was a wall. Not even the press could climb it. What Stephen A. is really saying here is that Jordan built his empire without noise, without applause, without curated narratives. He dominated in a vacuum, and the silence was deafening. LeBron? He exists in a vacuum of noise. And that noise softens the edge. That noise removes the fear. It welcomes criticism. It invites judgment. Jordan didn't allow that. He didn't need to. He let the scoreboard and the rings and the look in his eyes do the talking. And that's why the legacy is untouched.
Back and stuff like that. You hear stuff 30 years later about MJ. A lot of times you didn't hear that kind of stuff going on because there was a level of respect and fear.
JJ Redick brings to light a critical point that fans of different generations often overlook. LeBron James came into a world where everything is under a microscope, a media landscape that is ruthless, relentless, and always active. Unlike Michael Jordan's era, LeBron has never had a moment of peace from the spotlight. Every tweet, every facial expression, every sideline whisper has been tracked, dissected, and used to shape public opinion. But here's the real issue. Despite living under this 24-hour surveillance culture, the constant coverage has not created the kind of mystique or reverence that Michael Jordan commanded. Jordan didn't need a 24/7 news cycle to become iconic. He didn't rely on algorithms or viral moments to capture hearts worldwide. His dominance was so pure, so visceral, that word of mouth and limited media outlets were more than enough to elevate him into global mythology. JJ's comment attempts to contextualize LeBron's environment, but instead, it exposes the difference in substance. If Jordan had today's media at his disposal, he would have shut it down with his sheer force of personality and performance. LeBron, on the other hand, has had more than enough opportunities to shape his own story, but the constant media coverage has only chipped away at his image. It has shown cracks, exposed insecurities, and highlighted inconsistencies. It has made him human. Jordan never gave the world a chance to see that side, because he earned his greatness on the court without needing narrative manipulation. JJ can highlight the differences in eras all he wants, but the truth remains. Jordan thrived without the camera always on him. That's because Jordan didn't need validation. His game spoke loud enough, and the world listened.
LeBron has grown up in a completely different world that existed in the 80s and 90s.
JJ Redick throws in a wild hypothetical, painting a picture of Michael Jordan hitting up Atlantic City the night before a crucial playoff game in the modern media age. His point seems to be that Jordan would have been crucified if the same standards of today applied back then. But here's the difference. Michael Jordan actually did that, and he still came back and torched the Knicks with a vengeance. The media coverage wasn't the same, but the stakes were. Jordan wasn't hiding from the world. He just didn't need to explain himself. The reason Jordan survived and thrived through situations that would have ruined most other athletes was because of what he brought to the court every single night. He played with an assassin's edge, and that edge gave him immunity. The media couldn't touch him because every time they tried, he shut them up with performance. That's the power of true greatness. JJ's point only strengthens Jordan's legend. He's trying to argue that Jordan would have been seen differently under today's lens. But in reality, if Jordan played today, he would dominate the coverage, not be victimized by it. He would own it. He wouldn't rely on PR teams or digital storytelling. He would let his jump shot, his defensive lockdowns, and his 6 titles speak volumes. JJ underestimates the power of Jordan's will. He makes it sound like Jordan would fold under pressure when the truth is Jordan was pressure. He brought it, he fed on it, and he never ran from it. LeBron, even with all the media tools at his disposal, has not built the same unshakable narrative. That's because he doesn't control the moment like Jordan did. He reacts to it. Jordan dictated the tempo both on and off the court, and no amount of hypothetical scrutiny can rewrite that fact.
Take in the 90s. Could you imagine in the New York Knicks series, MJ going to Atlantic City the day before the game and coming home at 2 a.m.?
Stephen A. Smith calls out one of the most polarizing aspects of Michael Jordan's off-court life, his gambling. But instead of tarnishing Jordan's legacy, Stephen A. flips the narrative. He reminds everyone that Jordan, even while indulging in high-stakes risks, was untouchable. He gambled millions, but that didn't define him. It wasn't used to tear him down. That's because he earned a level of respect through his achievements that shielded him from scandal. Jordan wasn't perfect, but he was powerful. He turned controversy into curiosity. People didn't want to cancel Jordan. They wanted to understand what made him so driven that he would take the same killer instinct from the court to the casino. That kind of psychological force captivated people. Stephen A. makes it clear that Jordan's financial decisions never became a punchline because his worth, both monetary and symbolic, was undeniable. He wasn't just an athlete, he was a cultural force. And that's where LeBron continues to fall short. Every time LeBron makes a mistake, people swarm like vultures. Why? Because he hasn't built the same unbreakable foundation. Jordan's value was never questioned, no matter how much he lost in a card game. LeBron can be a billionaire and still struggle with narrative control. That's because his greatness is constantly debated. Jordan's never was. Jordan got everything on his own, through sweat, sacrifice, and moments that shook arenas to their core. He didn't need protection or justification. He stood on what he earned. Stephen A. isn't just defending Jordan here. He's reminding the world that when you're that great, your imperfections become part of your mystique. With LeBron, imperfections turn into indictments. That's the difference. That's the legacy gap no media cycle can erase.
Jordan went out and gambled, right? And Michael Jordan, hypothetically, I guess it was in the millions or whatever he might have lost. My response, you have any idea how much money Michael Jordan's worth?
Stephen A. Smith hits the heart of the matter with this statement. Michael Jordan could go out, gamble into the early hours, and then step onto the hardwood and drop 55 without breaking a sweat. That's not just talent. That's transcendent mental focus. That's a level of greatness that belongs in a category by itself. Jordan was not just playing basketball. He was performing with godlike precision. You could try to throw distractions at him, and he would eat them for breakfast. The gambling was never a downfall. It was never a burden. It was just another layer to his larger-than-life story. Jordan was built differently. He could separate everything and lock in like a machine the moment the ball tipped. That kind of mental wiring is what separates him from every other player, especially LeBron. While LeBron needs structure, sleep regimens, media management, and narrative defense, Jordan needed one thing only: the game. And when the game started, he imposed his will on it like a king walking into his court. Stephen A. is not just praising Jordan here. He's holding up a mirror to every modern player who thinks greatness is about image control. Jordan never managed his image. He never needed to. His play did it all for him. 55 points after a night in the casino? That's more than dominance. That's untouchable. And when LeBron's biggest games are preceded by Instagram stories and PR campaigns, it only highlights how far removed today's stars are from that Jordan level. Jordan's greatness came from raw instinct and supreme confidence. That's why no controversy could bring him down. He always answered with results. That's what Stephen A. means when he says Jordan is different. Because he is.
People talk about LeBron, though, is because he lives in a 24/7 news
They would have talked about
all
anybody.
the time.
And it would have been just as bad, if not worse, for MJ, no doubt about it.
Stephen A. Smith repeats the Atlantic City story, and it bears repeating because it tells you everything you need to know about Michael Jordan. This man lived life on his own terms. made his own choices, and never once let any of that affect his game. He didn't hide. He didn't blame. He just delivered. Madison Square Garden, the mecca of basketball, was where he chose to send his message. 55 points on the Knicks, the league's toughest defensive team at the time, right after gambling into the early morning hours? That is legend-making in real time. Jordan wasn't protecting his brand. He was building an immortal legacy, one performance at a time. That's the kind of power only true greatness allows. And while Stephen A. repeats this for emphasis, it's more than a story. It's a benchmark. It's the line in the sand that separates Jordan from everyone else, LeBron included. Could LeBron ever do that? Could he ever throw caution to the wind and then show up in the toughest arena and dominate without excuse? History says no, because LeBron's greatness always comes with qualifiers. Always comes with context. With Jordan, there was none. There was just performance. He made it impossible for critics to say anything because he never gave them the ammunition. That's the core of this point. You can't bring Jordan down because he always delivered the knockout blow when it mattered. Stephen A. is hammering that truth into the conversation because it's the truth no one can refute. This is who Jordan was, and that's why nobody will ever be like him.
But I'm talking to you about respect and fear. There's no question. We ain't talking about respect for LeBron.
And I'm disagreeing with you completely.
And so you're saying,
There's no credence, JJ.
So you're saying that the people like that, the fear that Michael Jordan instilled in people, that's what LeBron did?
Yes.
This is the statement that every LeBron fan needs to hear. Michael Jordan was not immune to criticism. He had reporters following his every move, whispering about his lifestyle, dissecting his decisions. But here's the difference. He took all that noise and buried it under buckets. He never ran from the heat. He thrived in it. Criticism was not a distraction to him, it was fuel. When the world doubted him, he answered with a masterpiece, again and again. That's the legacy Stephen A. is highlighting. Jordan didn't ask for grace. He didn't plead for understanding. He just showed up and owned the moment, every single time. With LeBron, it's different. The criticism often gets deflected. The conversation shifts to the media, to context, to mental health. And while those conversations are important, they are not the shield Jordan ever used. Jordan faced his critics head-on. He took the punches and delivered his own with jumpers, dunks, steals, and championships. There was no media team spinning narratives. No need for public sympathy. Just ruthless execution. Stephen A. is telling the audience that true greatness does not require protection. It needs no PR campaign. It shows up and silences everything. That was Jordan's method. That was his reality. And that's why Stephen A. keeps coming back to this point. Because no matter how many cameras are on you, no matter how many people are talking, what separates the great from the immortal is how you respond. Jordan always responded like a god among men. That's why he remains untouchable.
You're comparing two different things. To say that his peers don't fear him, opposing coaches don't fear him. You think people want to go into a playoff series against LeBron?
This is the part that slams the door shut on all the noise. Stephen A. Smith drops the hammer right here. Michael Jordan's gambling was never a problem. Why? Because he always showed up. Every time. That's the only standard that should matter in sports. When the lights were bright, Jordan was even brighter. No headline, no rumor, no tabloid nonsense could shake his focus. People tried to make his personal life the story, but Jordan made sure the real story was always on the court. While others collapse under pressure, Jordan used pressure like a ladder. The bigger the moment, the higher he climbed. That's what Stephen A. is shouting from the rooftops. Jordan never let his choices become excuses. He owned every part of himself, even his flaws. And that's what made him invincible, because you can't break a man who doesn't flinch. That's where LeBron starts to look different. LeBron's game is elite. His accomplishments are legendary, but the image is always curated. There's always a strategy behind the scenes. With Jordan, there was just greatness. Raw, unfiltered, and undeniable. The media could dig, but it never mattered because Jordan always delivered when it counted. He answered every accusation with a performance. He buried every doubt with a win. That's why his gambling never became a real problem, because he gave people nothing to question on the hardwood. Stephen A. is not excusing Jordan's lifestyle. He's simply reminding everyone that the game always came first for MJ, and that's why the legacy still stands tall, untouched by scandal.
No, I'm not talking about basketball. I'm not talking about basketball. On the court, I'm acknowledging his greatness. What I'm saying to you, the way people talk about him, the way they look to attack him, talking about contemporaries in the National Basketball Association, I'm not talking about his performance on the court. That's not what I'm saying. And by the way,
this quote hits like a thunderclap. Stephen A. is not just reminiscing. He's putting respect where it belongs. Michael Jordan always showed up. He always answered the call. He never ran. That's more than athleticism. That's character. That's a legacy built on reliability. In an era where athletes want to be understood more than they want to dominate, Jordan reminds us what greatness is supposed to look like. It means being there when it matters most. It means never hiding behind context. Jordan never begged for mercy. He never tried to reframe the narrative. When the team needed him, he stepped up. When the game was on the line, he delivered. There was no committee of analysts spinning his struggles into stories of victimhood. There was just one man, one ball, and the desire to win no matter what. That's the Jordan mentality. And Stephen A. is screaming it out loud because that mentality is rare now. LeBron, for all his accomplishments, has moments where he shrinks, where the game becomes about something else, about his legacy, about the hate, about the noise. Jordan didn't care about any of that. He only cared about the result. That's why people worshipped him. Not because he was perfect, but because he never turned away from the fight. That's what separates legends from leaders. Stephen A. is holding a mirror up to this generation. He's saying, this is what it looks like to never run. This is what it means to always answer the call. This is why Jordan's name still echoes louder than anyone else's.
I mean, this dude is a guy that is a four-time champion, a four-time league MVP.
This final shot from Stephen A. Smith is the dagger. You cannot say that about a lot of players today. He's not just defending Jordan here. He's indicting the modern NBA. He's calling out the culture of curated greatness, where branding outweighs performance, and players are more concerned with their legacy than their results. The truth hurts, and Stephen A. is not sugarcoating it. Most of today's stars want credit before they earn it. They want sympathy before they face the pressure. They want to be protected from failure instead of confronting it. Jordan never needed protection. He took the criticism head-on and let his game talk for him. That's why his legend grew. Not through highlight reels or social media, but through championship banners and unforgettable performances. Stephen A. knows it. JJ Redick knows it. Anyone who watched Jordan play knows it. That kind of player is rare, and in this era, it's becoming extinct. LeBron may be the face of this generation, but the face doesn't always represent the foundation. Jordan was the foundation. He built the NBA's global legacy. He gave everything on the court and never once asked for applause outside of it. That's why Stephen A. is saying you can't say this about many players today, because they haven't earned that kind of reverence. They haven't bled for the game the way Jordan did. And until someone shows up every night, delivers under fire, silences critics with performance instead of narrative, and does it without asking for understanding, Jordan will always be the one. Always.
Actual ring. It's the pursuit of it and a commitment to going for it. Come hella high water. LeBron knows that, whether he's willing to admit.
This debate isn't about numbers. It's not about stats. It's not even about who had more highlights or who lasted longer. It's about reverence. It's about legacy earned through fire. And Stephen A. Smith made one thing crystal clear. Michael Jordan earned everything through performance, not protection. JJ Redick may point out the reality of LeBron's 24/7 media world, but that only proves how different the two truly are. Jordan thrived without the narrative machine. He didn't have an army of analysts to explain his journey. He didn't need a campaign to frame his greatness. He wrote his legacy in sweat, blood, and championships. LeBron's greatness may be respected, but Jordan's is worshipped. Because Jordan never asked for it. He took it. And the more you look at the difference, the louder it becomes. Michael Jordan got everything on his own. And no amount of media noise will ever change that. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to NBA Showdown for more hard-hitting breakdowns where we bring the truth to the surface. This is not about favorites. This is about facts. And the fact is, Jordan still reigns supreme.